ReZero, Arc 8, Chapter 8, Future Prospects.
When the cloud dragon flew into the imperial capital, leaving Madeline behind, Emilia decided to follow Cecilus, who was chasing after it, but she fell behind and chose to hide within the city herself. Emilia, hey, you there. Take this girl and step back. I've frozen her limbs so that she won't struggle, so please handle her gently. She didn't forget to entrust the frozen Madeline to the soldier that carefully examined the situation. Madeline, who was frozen in ice, showed no signs of waking up, and since her limbs were strongly frozen, there should have been minimal concern about her causing a disturbance in the headquarters. Emilia, it feels like a really unpleasant atmosphere. After leaving Madeline in someone else's care, Emilia created an ice staircase and climbed over the city walls. She felt a sense of unease from the atmosphere that pervaded the imperial capital. The air itself should not have changed between inside and outside the city walls, but there was certainly a prickling sensation on the skin, which threatened to unsettle Emilia's heart. However, she could not afford to be defeated by the prickling sensation in her heart and back down. Emilia, Mazoya and Cecilus have both gone towards the castle. The battle with the cloud dragon Mazoya would have ended in Emilia's complete defeat if Cecilus had not intervened. Thanks to Cecilus, Emilia managed to hold on, but she was constantly reflecting on the fact that she was almost defeated. Emilia, even though I asked everyone to come all the way to Wallachia, of course, everyone was worried about Subaru and Rem, who was sent flying. If she were to say something like that now, no one would blame Emilia alone. Nevertheless, Emilia had a responsibility as the most important person in the camp. Emilia had to be aware of Roswell's importance as her supporter, as well as another, different kind of importance. She needed to acknowledge the importance of everyone's efforts in order to fulfill her own wishes. Therefore, Emilia, I have to work really hard to fulfill what I said I could do. After climbing over the tall city walls, Emilia finally entered the streets of the imperial capital and saw the cityscape. Though quite different from the atmosphere of the royal capital of Lagunica, being the capital city of a major nation, the orderly and tidy layout of buildings as well as functional areas could be perceived as the result of well-thought urban planning even from Emilia's viewpoint. The emperor of the empire must have had a clear vision for the future and worked hard to make this city and country a better place. Emilia, even if you try so hard, this is how it turns out, huh? The impression someone would get from the cityscape of the imperial capital and its current condition, however, was strikingly distinct. Regardless of what intentions the emperor held when it came to governing the empire, the answer that a part of the imperial citizens came up with was this rebellion, and Emilia was on the side supporting it. While one could say that it happened gradually or as a result of circumstances, Emilia did not side with them thoughtlessly. She listened to them, discussed it with her comrades, and made the decision. Of course, she did not think it would be best to take the emperor's life as many traitors wanted, but rather to capture him and negotiate with Abel and others. However, Emilia's hopes and wishes were betrayed in a way she could never have imagined by the events that occurred in the imperial capital. Emilia, what? In the far distance, near the magnificent building called the Crystal Palace located at the very back of the imperial capital, one could see a gigantic figure colliding with the cloud dragon that took off from the battlefield. The collision between two giant entities further increased the danger of the siege of the imperial capital by 1 or 2 levels, but there was something else that surprised her even more. At the Crystal Palace, where a fierce battle was raging, and all over the imperial capital, pale figures attacking the fleeing people were appearing in large numbers. Emilia, I don't want to. The moment Emilia saw their presence, a chill ran up her spine. The sensation that Emilia felt was not just a physical disgust, but it was probably her nature as a spiritual arts user that caused her to repulse them. Spirits were natural entities that desired by the world emerged into existence. On the other hand, what caused her to shiver were unnatural entities, impure beings that the world did not recognize, and Emilia intuited that as a spiritual arts user. At the same time, Emilia realized that the internal conflict of the empire, which had been painful and sad, had transformed into a fierce competition for survival between not just humans but also non-human entities. Emilia, the moment she intuited such, the significance of that battlefield changed within Emilia. To make the most of what was available, Emilia lifted both arms and created ice stairs haphazardly within range of the star-shaped city walls surrounding the imperial capital. By creating ice stairs wherever she could, Emilia turned the situation of being unable to enter or leave without passing through the city gates into a situation where it was possible to enter or leave from places other than the gates, thereby increasing the escape routes. Emilia, everyone, run to the wall. You don't have to go to the gate, you can escape from there. Calling out in a loud voice, Emilia descended from the city walls into the city. As soon as she did, a pale being appeared as if growing up from the ground and reached out to Emilia. Emilia mercilessly struck it down with a blow from an ice sword. Emilia, I think you guys also have your own goals, but Emilia could not meekly be persuaded to sit down for a dialogue when she was being attacked by others without explanation. The ones who stood in her way were all dressed in the military uniforms of the imperial soldiers, and when they were hit by Emilia's attacks as she broke through them, their bodies shattered and collapsed like pottery. However, their broken bodies immediately began to stick back together, and they returned to their original state, unable to be fully defeated. Emilia, if that's the case then, even at a disadvantage, Emilia showed her boldness by not retreating there. Against an opponent who would get up even if they were crushed, Emilia steered towards icing the opponent with sword blows, rather than smashing them with sword blows. Emilia, Taya. Ta. Against the 1, then 2, then 3, then 4 enemies that rose up, Emilia kicked the walls, the ground, and the streets of the imperial city in all directions as she jumped around and laid waste with her assault. Enemies who were attacked by Emilia and had their crushed parts iced over were, as one would expect, unable to have their wounds repaired to their original state. However, there were also some enemies who destroyed the iced parts themselves and overwrote it with regeneration. Emilia, well then, I'll take that approach away from them. If the opponent responded, then Emilia would further surpass their response. If freezing a part of the body did not work, she assailed the enemies by freezing the entire body. Of course, the strength used against one enemy would be greater, but there was nothing she could do about that. Her missing endurance was made up by willpower determination, and Emilia cleared the streets of the whole area. Emilia, go, quickly. If you go now, they won't get in your way. Run, run. Emilia guided the people of the imperial capital who were slow to escape, by making the streets she had cleared easy to understand. In the meantime, she herself ran in the opposite direction of those running toward the city walls and ran full speed on the road deeper into the city. Emilia, someone is committing all this badness. The enemies appearing one after another were caused by an unnatural phenomenon, meaning, like magic or curse arts, someone's will was involved in raising them. If the caster was there will basically be no resolution unless they are stopped. There was a limit to the extent of what Emilia could freeze. Fortunately, Emilia, who had a freakishly large store of mana, was still able to move, but with fighting Madeline, Mizoya's participation, creating the stairway to the inside and outside of the city walls just a moment ago, and then battling enemies that appeared one after another, she was still feeling tired. Emilia, even though being a wee bit more energetic than others is supposed to be my strong point. HK, as she felt pity for her lack of strength, Emilia ran up the streets of the imperial capital. She could move faster if she aimed straight for the Crystal Palace, but she had to protect the people who were being attacked by enemies along the way. This was the limit of her speed as she was helping them. While she was thinking about this, she saw another group of people struggling to stay out of sight of the enemy on the street. Emilia, I'll make a path, right away. There were 4 enemies who seem like they will get in the way of the group going out into the street. The moment those turned their back, Emilia leapt down from the roof of the building, and before they could turn around to see her, her ice blade flashed. Emilia, the bluish-white, glistening ice sword cleaved the atmosphere, transforming the 4 enemies who were hit by the slash into ice statues. After making sure her enemies, frozen with a look of surprise on their faces, were properly iced, Emilia converted the ice sword in her hand to mana and turned to the other side of the street. Emilia, you're safe now. If you use the ice as a landmark, then you can make it out of here. ? Thank you very much. You saved us, Emilia called out to them, and a voice answered from the other side. Emilia raised her hand in response to their thanks and thought about resuming going to the center once the people crossed the road safely. That's what she thought, but, Emilia, wow, that's a lot of children. Opening her eyes wide, in Emilia's vision a group of nearly 20 people slipped out from the other side of the street. Moreover, most of them were children about 10 years old, all with dark hair. Emilia blinked her eyes at the very unusual group, as black hair itself was rare. There were too many kids whose faces did not resemble one another for them all to be of the same family, which made her think that maybe that was not the case. Then, one of the few adults in the group waved at Emilia. ? Hey, you really saved us. At any rate, we got our hands full just trying to run and hide. I was having trouble deciding whether to play the decoy myself or not. Emilia, is that so? In that case, I'm glad you didn't. It should be fine from here, so everyone should work together and not be impatient. ? Understood. Miss, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Well then, wife San. Miss Katya, don't call out so loud. It'll be bad if those guys show up again. It was a woman at the end of the line who thus answered the call of the blonde, young man with a cheerful smile. Emilia was slightly surprised when she saw a small woman riding a wheelchair. Emilia, besides the one Subaru made, this is the first I've seen. Wheelchairs were useful for transporting people with impaired legs, but that kind of tool was rarely seen. Emilia also knew about them because she had seen the actual wheelchair that Subaru had gone to the trouble of designing and assembling for the sleeping girl. Now that Subaru and Rem had been sent flying, that wheelchair too was left at the Roswell mansion. But, Rem, Katya-san, please don't be so angry. I understand your unease after being separated from your fiancé. Katya, don't go saying unnecessary stuff. You've been worried about those kids this whole time too. Don't only talk to me. Rem, that wasn't my intention. Emilia, whose eyes had been fixed on the girl in the wheelchair, was slow to recognize the sight of the girl standing behind her that was pushing the wheelchair. Holding the handles on the back of the wheelchair and pushing it was a girl with blue hair. Emilia, Rem. Involuntarily, Emilia's lips uttered that name, and her eyes met with the girl who looked up in surprise. Emilia stared fixedly at the face of the wide-eyed girl who was looking back at her. It was the first time Emilia had seen her with her eyes open, but she looked exactly like the girl Emilia knew very well. That, too, was expected, as Emilia had heard that this girl and the girl she knew were twins. From none other than Emilia's trustworthy knight. Rem, do you know me? Raising her brow, the girl Rem looked at Emilia suspiciously. Emilia gasped at that question from the girl with one hand on her chest. Stuck in the middle of the pair's conversation, the girl in the wheelchair looked back and forth between Emilia and Rem's faces, and then, Katya, another one of your acquaintances. Just how many people are looking for you? Wah, Emilia, Rem, leaping over the woman muttering something with a sour look, Emilia closed the distance between them and took Rem's hand. Rem's eyes widened at her movement, but Emilia was not composed enough to show consideration for her surprise. Still clutching her hand, Emilia teared up at the sight of Rem in front of her. Emilia, awake. Rem's awake. Amazing. This is huge. Quick, I have to let Ram and Subaru know. Rem, wait please, just who are you? Emilia, there was a message from Ram saying to meet up outside, so maybe she's already outside? Geez. Why is Subaru missing at a time like this? Rem, please listen to what I'm saying. With so many surprising incidents, Emilia's head was a complete mess, and it was Rem who put the brakes on her thoughts. She stared angrily at Emilia, who was still clutching her hand. Rem, you also called me Rem. Are you someone who knew me from before? Emilia, no, that's a bit tough to answer. I don't remember you from when you were awake, either. So, it's weird, but it feels like we're meeting for the first time. Rem, I don't know what you mean. Emilia, I'm not very good at explaining things, so I'm not sure I'll be able to get this across properly. Emilia felt sorry and thought about what to say to the puzzled Rem. It was a great feeling to be able to talk to Rem while she was awake, but to Emilia, she was Ram's younger sister, and a girl who had been asleep for more than a year. She was also someone who had had her memories from her time awake stolen by the power of the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. If not for what Subaru had said and Rem's resemblance with Ram convincing her that her memories with Rem were truly stolen, Emilia herself held no particular feelings. However, there were some things that could be discerned from Rem's account and from what Emilia herself knew. That was, Emilia, Rem, is it possible that you don't remember what happened before you woke up? Rem, well, I don't really know how to feel about there being a before and after I woke up, but yes, Emilia, so. That's how it is. She had a hope that perhaps when Rem had woken up, she would have the memories of her time with Emilia and the others, and that she might be able to tell her about their previous relationship. Unfortunately, that hope was not realized, but still, Emilia, but you don't have to worry about anything. You may be really worried because you don't understand a lot of things, but I will help you, and Ram and Subaru will both be there for you. Rem. What are you, to me, Emilia? If I were to just state our relationship, I would say that we are guest and maid. But I don't think that's the only type of relationship I have with Ram, so I guess I want to have more than just that with you as well. Rem, Emilia, lending each other help when we need it, thinking together when we have problems, and facing difficult things side by side. Maybe I can't explain this kind of relationship very well. When asked who she was to Rem, Emilia was unsure. The reason for that was that her relationship with her had been brought down to zero and had to be reassembled from that point once again. So, she would only be able to convey how she wanted to reassemble it, and her prospects of it. Emilia, I want to get along with you, Rem. Let's do our very best together. That was Emilia's honest belief, and her future prospects. Rem. Upon hearing Emilia's answer, Rem's eyes widened and her lips opened and closed several times. However, her thoughts were not so readily put into words, and her lips opened and closed over and over again. Just like that, the moments slowly seemed to slip away. But, Flop, wife-san, I have a feeling she's on your side. Rem, Flop-san. Flop, I've met many people as a merchant, but it's rare to meet someone who is so straightforward. I'm sure she can be trusted. It was the blonde-haired young man named Flop who said this to the stammering Rem. At his bright and cheerful affirmation, Rem raised her eyebrows and then turned to look at Emilia again. Emilia met that gaze with pride in her chest. At Emilia's attitude, Rem let out a small sigh. Rem, I believe that you are someone who knows me, and that you have no ill will. Rem's hesitation to say so made Emilia's heart ache for a moment. Emilia's eyes widened, and Rem's pale blue eyes narrowed slightly. Rem, you mentioned the name Subaru earlier. Emilia, huh? Yeah, I did. Subaru is someone who really worries about you and has always treasured you, Rem. If that is true, Rem's eyes lowered at Emilia's answer, and her gaze glanced toward the end of the alley, the direction from which Rem's group had just come from. It was not quite a glance into the alley, but more like a glance back along the path they had just taken. Emilia thought about what it might mean, and leaned forward with by any chance. Emilia, were you with Subaru? Is Subaru okay? He's not doing anything reckless, right, Rem, so that's your perception, too. That man is often reckless, Emilia, yeah. He's a difficult boy and… Oh. Come to think of it, Rem, what is it? Emilia, my name is Emilia, just Emilia. Since you've forgotten, I should probably start by introducing myself. Even though Emilia remembered Rem's name, Rem did not know Emilia's, and no matter how much time passes, if she did not tell her, Rem would never be able to call her by name. After hearing Emilia's name, Rem's eyes slightly opened in surprise. Rem, Emilia-san. Emilia, yeah. So Rem, about Subaru, is he over there? Rem, they're over there. I'm pretty sure of it. Then, upon hearing Rem speak ambiguously and seeing her expression darken, Emilia raised her eyebrows with a bad feeling. Looking at the state of the imperial capital and the fact that Rem, Flop, the girl in the wheelchair, and the children were the only ones on the move, it was not very Subaru-like for him to be separate from them. Still, if Subaru is moving separately from Rem and the others, Emilia, well then, he's being reckless again. I've got to get to him quickly, Rem, since you immediately know what to expect. Then he is that kind of person after all. Emilia: yes, Subaru has a habit of showing off, so I'm always worried about him. Rem: so he is that kind of person after all. Rem nodded her head in agreement with Emilia's assessment of Subaru. Emilia was happy to exchange words with Rem like this, but the urgency of this situation did not allow for a lengthy chat. What made that sentiment even more urgent was that, Katya, HK. WH what? What is that? Suddenly, a rather loud explosion echoed in the distance. The woman in the wheelchair, her shoulders jumping at the sound, looked around restlessly. While it was hard to make out from her location, Emilia could see a red pillar of fire rising from the far side of the imperial capital, followed by a plume of black smoke. It was a very big explosion. The atmosphere did not seem troubled, so it did not seem to be an explosion caused by magic. Perhaps it was ignited by fire magic stones or something. Rem: over there. Emilia: by any chance, is that the direction where Subaru is? Rem: yes. Looking toward the direction of the explosion, the choked-up Rem nodded to Emilia's question. The moment Emilia saw the explosion, she could not help but think that Subaru had something to do with it. She wanted to rush over there right now and join Subaru, but it was also a very difficult choice to leave Rem here alone, considering how Ram and Subaru would feel, and Emilia was almost overwhelmed with wanting to do both this and that. Katya, are you going toward the explosion? Then, take that girl with you. She's useful. Emilia? Huh? Rem: Katya-san? The confusion in Emilia's mind was brought to a stop by Katya, a woman in a wheelchair who had been extremely startled by the sound of the explosion. She timidly looked at Emilia, repeatedly making eye contact and then averting her gaze. Katya, look, she can use magic to heal wounds. If you had that, you'd be okay, even if they were a bit reckless. Besides, it's been on your mind this whole time. Rem: I think it's Katya-san who is concerned about these things. Katya: I'm fine. And Todd, you see, that guy is a damn scumbag. He's bound to come back with a calm and collected look on his face no matter what. But, those kids, aren't as tough as Todd. Rem: yes, but, Katya's faltering speech, while blunt, was sympathetic toward Rem's feelings. Perhaps it was because that thoughtfulness was conveyed well. Rem was unable to nod at Katya's words. When Katya saw Rem's reluctance, she raised her voice and said, forget it, Katya, from here on, this person. She took care of it already, right? This. What's with you? Silver hair and long ears, that's a bad omen, isn't it? Emilia: oh, I didn't want to bring it up, it might trouble you, so don't look at me right now. If people found out that Emilia was a half-elf, it might scare them away, even in the Empire. So, she hid both of her ears with her hands so that they might forget about it. Katya looked at Rem again, wondering about Emilia's reaction. Katya, if it's about me, you worry too much. I'll let the nice, scraggly guy over there take me. You do what you want to do, and do it properly. Rem: Katya, and while at it, make sure Todd hasn't screwed things up. That's all I'm going to say. Come on, now don't dawdle. With that, Katya spun the wheels of her wheelchair and moved away from Rem. Rem let out a small ah at Katya's decision to go without her, and then cast her eyes down. However, while she closed her eyes tightly, Rem: Flop-san, can I leave Katya-san in your care? Flop: yeah, she's in good hands. Let's just get through this last push with the fake crown prince Kunz we have worked so hard together with. Rem: yes. Katya-san, thank you very much. Rem bowed deeply to Flop, who thumped his chest and was ready to take over. Katya's cheeks reddened as she turned away with a humph. While smiles were exchanged between Rem and Katya, Emilia looked at them fondly. Emilia, when we get out of here, please tell me what you have been doing up until today. Rem: Ram, Subaru, and everyone else would really like to hear it. Rem: I don't even think it's going to be an interesting story. But, I understand. When Emilia held out her hand, Rem hesitated slightly before grasping it back. Emilia smiled at the touch and then gently pulled toward herself. Unexpectedly, Rem's eyes widened, and she stumbled and fell onto Emilia's chest. Then, Emilia picked up Rem's body and said, "All right, Emilia, sorry. We can't afford to take our time, so let me carry you so we can go a little faster." Rem, "Why, you're quite strong, aren't you?" Emilia, "Yes, I am. Take care, everyone. We will meet again." With Rem in a princess carry, Emilia called out to Katya and Flop and the others around her. Then, with a yeah, she leapt from that spot and ascended up to the roof of the building. Flop, "Wife San. Miss Emilia. Please be careful out there as well." Katya, "Why, you better come back to us." With those cheers, Emilia looked down at Rem, who was in her arms. "Emilia, hold on tight. I'm going to run a little fast." Rem, "What kind of relationship did you and I have before?" Rem squeezed and clung on tightly, murmuring to herself. Emilia did not have a clear answer to give. "Emilia, I'd like to know about that as well." With that strong declaration, she started running again deep into the imperial capital, with Rem in her arms. Continuing on, Emilia ran, and ran, and ran, with the feeling of Rem's arms clinging tightly to her, and then, "Emilia, that's enough." At that moment, the reunion had been made complete.